I'm Dr. Antonelle Olkers. I'm the president of the AFSA IE. AFSA is the African Forensic Sciences Academy, and AFSA is the very first formally registered Forensic Sciences Academy in Africa. We are also the only formally registered academy or professional group of forensic scientists that represent scientists and medical professionals in forensic science. So we call everybody as a group forensic science professionals. We represent every field that is practiced, and there are quite a few. So we decided from the day one, we were founded on the 15th of December in 2022. So we are just a few months old, a little bit more than a year. We then had to decide, where do we host AFSA? And so there was obviously long debates. Every country in Africa almost wanted to be the host. We initially wanted to vote and then decided to just have a discussion. And ultimately, Rwanda was chosen as the host for AFSA. So we are formally registered by the RGB in Rwanda. And the RGB then provides for AFSA independent oversight, but also we are housed in Rwanda, fortunately by the Rwanda Forensic Institute, the RFI. So they are our physical hosts and our partners in Rwanda. And the RFI and AFSA are then co-hosts for the conference of next week. So Rwanda was chosen as the hosts of AFSA for several reasons. When AFSA decided for Rwanda to be the host of AFSA, many factors came into play. So everybody started saying this country, that country, and then we strategically started to think what we want from a host country. So we clarified a few principles. It must be a country with no corruption. There must be ease of doing business, because we are having, it's not yet a board, it's an interim executive of 5 people living in very different countries. So ease of doing business was very important for us. Then His Excellency President Kagame went on record to state, anybody from Africa coming to Rwanda is welcome. And they don't have to get a visa, and they don't have to pay to enter the country. So that really for us is ideal in AFSA. So when we have events in Kigali, it's not difficult to enter the country. There's no visa process. There's no tedious processes you have to go. You get on Rwanda Air and you just fly in and you go through customs. So ease of doing business. It's easy to travel here as a professional to visit. Also, one of the key factors that tip the scales in Rwanda's favor is the fact that it's safe. As a tourist, you can walk in the street late at night and it's no problem. So most of us traveling here don't come from countries where it's as safe, where there's no corruption, where there's amazing political vision and political will. And the RFI has the goal to be the key forensics hub in Africa. So all of those aspects weighted the case for Rwanda being the host country. And then, of course, the RFI was kind enough to host us. So they are our hosting organization. Yet in the MOU we have with them, we made it very clear from the beginning that we are 2 entirely independent entities. So the RFI is a service provider in forensic science services in Rwanda, and now will expand its reach. AFSA is just a body that represents professionals. We don't provide other services. We currently don't provide the training. We will maybe in future. But we are the body that represents all the forensic scientists. We are not the body that provides forensic science services. So at a professional level, one has to have a host that understands the needs of forensic professionals, which Rwanda does. It also allows us, when we travel here, when we have events here, for instance, like the conference that we are having next week that is called AFSA 2024, it allows us to arrive in a country where you want to present a conference and you're not alone. There are a multitude of bodies coming your way to say we are here to help. So for instance, the Rwanda Convention Bureau, the Rwanda Development Board, Visit Rwanda, all of them came on board. The Office of the Government Spokesperson, OGS, was part of it. Our line ministry, since we are an international NGO, registered as such by the RGB, we have to have a line ministry. So our line ministry in Rwanda is the Ministry of Justice. So for us, all of these aspects play into why Rwanda is so ideal for us to be hosted. When you just think about the type of body that AFSA is, we have to bring together our members. Yes, we can do it online and we will, but from time to time, like next week, it will have to be in person. So we must choose a country that has the conference infrastructure in place that can actually do that. So when you go around in Africa, currently the conference hosting venues are not as well developed as Rwanda. In my view, Rwanda is at the top of my personal list. But okay, don't cut out the personal. So so Rwanda is very high on the list for us, and it was our choice. And we are hosting our conference next week at the KCC, which is an absolute excellent place to host it. Also, when we chose Rwanda, something that often goes unsaid is that we know that when people fly into Rwanda and they experience Rwanda, we are showing them the best of Africa. So that is for us really a great plus point. And of course, yes, you can put in the tourism. People come for the scientific, hardcore scientific event, but it's always nice for them to also take a trip to Akagera Park or go on a gorilla trek or to the Volcanoes Park and see the beauty of Africa that Rwanda then brings. So for the AFSA 24 conference, it is the very first conference that AFSA ever presents. So it's our inaugural conference. So we wanted it to be really a global highlight. And we decided then, strategically but also very carefully, to select the top forensic experts around the world. Of course, some of the programs, the schedules doesn't allow them to come, but most of them immediately said yes. So we are expecting today or tomorrow the president of the International Association for Forensic Sciences, IAFS. He is Prof. Janko Kolev. He is from Romania and he's the current IAFS president. We are also expecting Prof. Claude Roux, who is the immediate past president of IAFS, and he is from Sydney in Australia. Then we are expecting arguably the top digital expert in the world, Prof. Lena Klassen. She is from Sweden and a phenomenal leader in the field of digital forensics and AI. Then we are expecting Prof. Hee-San Chung. She is from Korea. Toxicology is her area, and she has been also the president of TIAFT and other bodies in our field. Prof. Chung and Prof. Klassen represent really the amazing heights that women achieved in our field already. Then there is also Kermit Channel. He is from ICITA, but he oversees their program in Kenya. Also, we have other of our colleagues from across Africa, Dr. Uam Eze from Nigeria, Dr. Patricia Kom from Cameroon, Stephen Fonseca, who is the head of the ICRC African Center for Medical Legal Systems of the ICRC. We are expecting Dr. Nora Rudden from the US, who's arguably the best independent DNA expert in the US. Also very important for us is that we have Dr. Charles Karonga, the DG of the RFI, and Anthony Wally, who is the Deputy Commissioner of Police in Botswana, talking about the forensic science ecosystems in their own countries, so that we provide an African vision for what forensic science ecosystem is for us. And to that end, we also are having a workshop based on the forensic science ecosystem. So other delegates, of course, delegates that are not keynote speakers, they work in the RFI or they work in academia and is related to the RFI. Many of those are giving talks at the conference next week. So we could not do this without our Rwandan colleagues. So in the view of AFSA, Rwanda is exceptionally well placed to receive, host, and take care of these delegates and present this excellent science program to them. The Rwanda is ready because the KCC, we worked with credible suppliers, the RCB was involved, OGS was involved, the ministry was involved, and AFSA is co-hosting this with the RFI. So in our views, although Murphy always happens, we are well prepared to receive these high-level professionals next week and to host all of our colleagues from around the world. Rwanda is very prepared. In our conference, we are hosting delegates from 24 African countries and 23 other countries outside of Africa. There are multiple benefits for Rwanda to be the host. One is the entire forensic science professional world is taking notice of Rwanda, is focused on Rwanda next week, focused on Kigali next week. Apart from the tourism aspects, they will boost the MICE sector and so on, but they are very well traveled people and they want to see the rest of Rwanda, but they're coming for the scientific program. And so the benefits to the country would be not only tourism, but also to start or continue with the efforts of the RFI to become the leader in forensic science in Africa and to become the forensic science hub in Africa. So once you get all the leaders of forensic science taking note of you, you are well connected within the space of forensic science. And we have much work to do in Africa and forensic science. But together, we as Africans will use all of our contacts to move us forward. The AFSA 2024 conference that is being held next week, we are excited, not only because of the interest that it has galvanized across the globe, but we also expect, due to the program that we have, that there will be incredible networks formed. So our conference is spread over 5 days. And the 6th day is an Umuganda social responsibility program in which we participate. So the first 2 days have intense training workshops. So all of our colleagues can be upskilled in the 2 days on any topic that they are interested in that is in our workshop program. So that's an amazing opportunity because you get the top people from across the globe and in Africa to present these workshops, and we have them here. And so it's open to all of us. So that's a massive advantage. Then in the scientific program, we have each of these keynote speakers, top forensic, global forensic experts, sharing their expertise. So it is a very unique experience, and so we expect many things from the conference, including very strong networks that will be forged. The entire world is taking note of Africa. 5 years ago, if I walked into a room and I started to say I'm an African, I practice forensic science, 5 or 10 years ago, people would say, "What do you mean?" are you practicing forensic science in Africa? So that we have changed, and AFSA has played a large role in it. I'm one of the type of Africans who just refuse to be ignored. We have a voice, we are excellent. There's no such thing as African excellence and other excellence. We are excellent, we are on par with the rest of the world. We don't often recognize it ourselves. And when I spoke to the international community and I asked, do they even know anybody else in Africa practicing forensic science? The answer was often, no, they don't know. So then I sat back and I thought, so how do we change this? Number one, we have to organize ourselves so that we can have a professional body and have a voice. If we don't, as AFSA, highlight our own forensic science excellence and forensic science stars of Africa, the world will never know how amazing the work is that we do. There are, in Africa, for instance, people jumping in, writing. So let me take Zambia as an example. There was no forensic science framework. Professor Luchenga Adam Mushlenga is a forensic pathologist, saw that, and he, together with Dr. Innocent Makasa in Zambia, wrote a forensic science framework. So they have now very robust, very strong, very healthy forensic science framework. So there are all of these factors coming into play for Africa. AFSA is the first formally registered body, the African Forensic Sciences Academy, that represents forensic practitioners from across Africa in all different fields. Whether you're a forensic pathologist, so working in medicine, toxicologist, you're working in chemistry, DNA expert like me, we represent everybody. Our first conference is next week in Kigali at the KCC, and that is what we call our inaugural conference. So I want to take you, if I may, with a historical timeline in 4 steps for AFSA. On the 15th of December in 2022, AFSA was founded by a group of founding members, a small group. Fortunately for us, in 23, a different organization, the African Society for Forensic Medicine, so a body that represents forensic pathologists, had their conference in Kigali, Rwanda, where we are going to be hosted by the RFI. And so we thought that that would be a great opportunity to physically launch AFSA to the rest of the world. And they were kind enough to give us a slot where we literally announced AFSA is now registered in Kigali, Rwanda, by the RGB as an international NGO. So it was launched at the African Forensic Medicine Conference. So, but it wasn't our conference, it was theirs. We are grateful that they gave us that opportunity. And so we had to then decide when to have our very first own conference, where everybody, so not only forensic pathologists like last year, but also forensic scientists that does not work in medicine and pathology are represented. And so that is AFSA, and we are having the AFSA inaugural conference next week. So the forensic science ecosystem across Africa is fragmented because we have not been organized before. So very few countries have, for instance, organized forensic science professional bodies, academies of their own. There's 2 or 3. So we then decided to form this body that represents everybody in Africa. At some point we will reach a tipping point and countries will start their own academies that could affiliate to us. But when we think about specifically Rwanda, Rwanda is well placed because not only of your geographic advantage, but also the fact of the quality of forensic science service that you deliver. So the Rwanda forensic professionals that practice here are on par with the forensic practitioners across Africa. Not all are as developed as the Rwanda Forensic Institute, of course. In some countries, there's just a very small group operating or practicing as forensic sciences. So Rwanda is there ahead of most other countries, I would say, in Africa. Fortunately for you, the vision at the RFI was such that it was the Rwanda Forensic Laboratory before. But then the DG, the minister, and so on, realized that the vision should be much wider than just service delivery. It should include training, it should include social services, it should include a lot of things. So that is the first step for Rwanda to then be a stronger link in the ecosystem. So now it is the RFI, the Rwanda Forensic Institute, so it's not only a service delivery arm anymore, there are other things that will branch out from there. In the process of becoming the leader, yes, you always improve your own professionals, which all countries around Africa is doing. You are looking to accredit your laboratories, all countries are looking to accredit. I work specifically in the field of DNA evidence, so I'm a DNA expert, and for DNA there's 3 or 4 labs across Africa that is accredited. So we are working towards that certification. So we are working towards that accreditation. At the same time, with AFSA, we will strive to put in a body in place that can certify professionals. So laboratories are accredited, but professionals are certified. So in Africa, the challenges we face, I always say, diversity is one of our strengths in Africa, but it's also a challenge for us because we speak different languages, we practice in different ways, so the language barriers can be overcome. Our AFSA website, for instance, was written in English, and then we use tools to translate it to French. So our working language is English, our second language is French, and then we also have the website now in Swahili and Portuguese. So we are trying to be innovative and succeeding to be an innovative leader because we are using all the digital tools out there to help us to reach all the countries in Africa. It's fortunate though that we have people in the current IE, like for instance Prof. Mehdi Ben Kilel, who's the Vice President. He speaks English, French and Arabic, so he bridges many divides in terms of languages. So it is something that we have to be aware of, so that's one gap. I would say that the biggest gap is that we are not connected. We don't network with each other. Yes, we are bogged down with casework and we go to court all the time, so it's difficult to lift your head up and say, wait a minute, I need to connect with everybody around me. In the couple of months that AFSA has existed, we have in a significant way made a difference, because somebody can contact AFSA to say, I operate in Tanzania, it's just an example, I need a DNA expert from somewhere. Of course they won't say that question because they have their own, but we can then say, well, we have an expert, we know of an expert that is a member that operates in this country, or somebody will call up from Senegal saying, I need somebody else, a fingerprint expert to look at something for me, or I need a second opinion and it's XYZ field, and so we can put these professionals in touch with each other. So what has now literally happened is that some of the professionals now have such strong links that their labs have an exchange program where the one lab goes and trains the other lab and makes sure that they are, let's say, on the same level with digital, and then the other lab comes back and they train in DNA so that they are then both upskilled. So the advantages That is the advantage of being network. So the challenge is to get that network in place. So we have a structure in place, but that is what the next board that is elected next week has to focus on. The main task will be to strengthen these bonds and to really tackle these challenges. For instance, a major challenge is, since forensic scientists in Africa formally registered didn't have a body that was formally registered that could give them a voice. Now they have in AFSA, and now we can take forensic science as a key priority to the African Union. So at present, there are some countries that have their own academies, but very few. They don't have bodies that does what AFSA does. AFSA does it for the whole continent. But we are encouraging countries to start their own academies, which can then affiliate with AFSA so that we can easily share information. So for this reason, one of our membership categories is an affiliate membership category. And in that category, bodies, an organization or a country can be a member of AFSA without any cost. It is basically just to disseminate information. At the founding meeting of AFSA, 5 people were chosen to serve as the interim executive of AFSA. They were tasked with, I shall call it, laying the first foundation of AFSA. And next week, the first board, official board of AFSA will be elected. So our work in the past 19 months, 20 months, has been to put structures in place, to get AFSA registered, to get a formal bank account in Kigali, to get things in place so that people can easily network with us. So our office is based in Kigali in Rwanda, but these 5 people that serve on our interim executive are from 5 different countries. Mehdi Ben Khalil, who's the vice president, is from Tunisia. I'm the president. I live in South Africa and practice across Africa. Carolina Wantegi Kabiyisa, she's the general secretary. She works at the RFI in Rwanda. Then Liam Robinson is a forensic odontologist. He also lives in South Africa. And Mr. Peter Okpole Paul is the treasurer, and he lives in Botswana. So we are, in a way, covering the whole of Africa, making sure that we have different voices making input into AFSA. What was also very important for us to be registered with the RGB, we had to have a constitution. So we all the IE members signed off on the constitution, and that's been on our website now for a year. In order to reach as many people as possible, we put our constitution on our website, and our website is literally, if you type in AFSA, AFSA, so afsa.africa. That's our website. For the conference next week, there are delegates coming from 24 African countries and 23 countries from outside of Africa. So that knowledge exchange is important to us. So people think that the expertise will flow from the rest of the world to Africa. I think differently. I think it's Africa where the knowledge will move to the rest of the world. For instance, one example is, given that our resources are limited, globally the resources are limited, but in Africa we're very aware of it. So what we have done is we have created really innovative ways to do things that are very costly in the rest of the world. And this way of doing things smarter, doing more with what you have, or doing something with less than what it costs in the rest of the world, we call that frugal forensics. And it's not a term that the rest of the world is aware of. But given that their resources are now becoming limited, they are all very interested in what frugal forensics is. And it's also the reason why one of our workshops next week speaks to frugal forensics. So the AFSA 2024 inaugural conference that happens next week is spread over 6 days. So the first 2 days are workshops, intensive workshops, presented by Africans and people from around the globe. That's Monday and Tuesday. On Wednesday, Thursday and Friday is an intense scientific program. So the conference next week consists of 6 days. The first 2 days are workshops, and the other 3, Wednesday, Thursday and Friday, is an intense scientific program. And on Saturday we have an Umuganda program, because in AFSA we want to do things different. You don't have to just fly into a country, do a conference and come out. You can also leave something of substance behind. So in our Umuganda program, we are going to the eco park and planting trees. So in these 6 days, we will introduce people to Kigali and Rwanda, but then focus for 5 days intensely on the forensic science program. So our theme for the inaugural conference is Forensic Science Ecosystem in Africa. Why is that important? It's important because AFSA is in its infancy, and given that the ecosystem is so fragmented, we have to map where we stand in terms of the ecosystem. And so that we can identify the challenges, the opportunities, the next steps, key priorities, and so on. The ecosystem there are known players in the ecosystem, like forensic science services for sure, legal practitioners for sure, police service for sure. But there are often people that work in the ecosystem, or entities that work in the ecosystem, that are often neglected. For instance, in gender-based violence cases, it's important to be sensitive to the environment that the victim finds themselves in. It's also important to make sure that the perpetrator or alleged perpetrator and the victim are separated when we deal with these cases, so that the victim does not have to face the alleged perpetrator directly in a small room until the case goes to court. It's also very important to note that due to the type of work we do, we are exposed to mental challenges. Mental health should be a key priority in our field. It is not, but it should be. But it's part of the ecosystem also. So that's often neglected, overlooked, and we have to make sure that we build a robust ecosystem for forensic sciences across Africa, so that none of these parts stay hidden, none of these aspects are forgotten. A healthy ecosystem has one goal, and it serves justice, not in each country, but for the citizens of Africa.